I'm sitting there in prison, and I just close my eyes. I just start praying, but I'm not praying to God. I'm saying, Satan, if you will have my soul, just give me everything that I want in this life. Give me money, give me power, give me control over every situation I want, and you can have my soul. I'm ready to die. I'm ready to do whatever it takes. I grew up in a broken family. I have one brother, and we grew up mostly with our grandmother. My mom's been a heroin addict the whole time, coming in and out of prison. My cousins, everybody's just hooked on heroin. I've always seen heroin all our lives growing up. So me and my brother got into weed, drinking alcohol, started selling drugs, to support the using of drugs. We got involved with a gang about the age of 14 and 15. Within the next couple years, things just went really fast. We started robbing drugs from connections and other people, and we're gang banging, rolling with the gang, doing the things that we do, so there was a lot of enemies involved. So somebody paged my brother, and he had to go to the corner payphone to make the call, and that was the last time I seen him. The next day after school, I remember going home and being like, hey, where's my brother? Where have you seen him? And she's like, no, we haven't. And then about an hour later, the gang unit came and gave us the news that he got kidnapped, murdered, and dumped in a trash can. And everything was like a dream. I was angry. Everything inside of me wanted revenge. I just started using a lot more drugs. I started being violent. There was no remorse for anything. There was no sadness for anything other than my brother was dead and I wouldn't see him anymore. I started making moves, and I'm getting stronger. I'm getting better at this. I'm getting more power and more money, and people are recognizing me for what I do and who I am. I spent a lot of time in jails, in and out. I must have like 30 arrests since I was a kid, and every time I'd get out of prison, it'd be like maybe 2 or 3 months, and I'm going back in again. And I'm kind of loving it. And I'm drinking and smoking and gambling like crazy, just living it up in there. I have a bunch of money, so I could just do what I want in there. But I'm reaching out to my family members, and I'm not getting no communication with anybody. I remember feeling so alone in there, just so much resentment built up inside of me, and anger and bitterness for everything that had happened. I tell one of my homeboys, hey, I want you to write, F you on my eyelids so that when I die and my family buries me, they'll see F you as I'm laying in my casket. I'm sitting there on my bunk praying to Satan, and I'm thinking, man, when I get out, I'm just gonna go so hard. I'm just gonna rob so many connections. I'm just gonna do everything I can to get paid. I'm pretty sure I'm gonna end up dead. And I ended up getting caught drinking one night, and they sent me to solitary confinement. So as I'm in the hole, I'm reading the book of Matthew, and all of a sudden I come across this scripture: blessed are the poor in spirit, those who are spiritually bankrupt. Man, I could not understand or tell you for the life of me, but I just started bawling. I just started crying, and I just knew right then and there. I knew what I'd never known before. I knew that God's judgment was on me, that I was poor, bankrupt, that I had no hope at all. I remember crying out to Jesus and saying, man, I don't want to be spiritually bankrupt. I don't have anything to offer you. I don't have anything but bad. And I'm crying and I'm bawling my eyes out, and I just remember I'm doing this. I'm going to do whatever it takes to follow you. I want you in my life. I got out of the hole, and I remember thinking, I don't know how to follow Jesus. All I know is how to do what I always done as a gang member. So I go and I try to sit down again at the poker table and start gambling. It's just not the same. What's going on? I seen a guy that a week before I had went to the hole and I had him beat up. I walk up to this dude man, I'm sorry I had that done to you. This remorse. Now I'm starting to have regret, real remorse over the things that have happened in my life. And now there's this peace in my life. and this repentance that I don't even know where it's coming from. I'm getting to know some of the other Christians there. I start to have fellowship with these guys. These guys now start to disciple me. And I met Sean in there. He's a Christian in there, and he gets out 2 years before I do. Fast forward, now I'm coming out to the streets that I've always just known how to do crime in. Sean reaches out and says, hey, we'd love for you to come by this house that we have where we live in community with other Christians, and we think you'd be a good fit. So God directed my path there, but all I know is prison. So these guys come alongside and they start showing me how to serve, how to give, how to love, how to not think so much about myself, how to not worry about clothes or food or anything, and to just trust in the Lord. And that's when I meet the people at the Salvation Army. They started taking me out to outreaches to go feed the homeless and stuff like that. I'm like, oh, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm just being used there, and I'm just loving it. And the crazy thing about it is, the whole time I've been out, I've been broke, and I've loved it. I've loved it because every time I've needed, God has provided. My life was so much about money, so much about clothes. I don't care about money. I don't care if I never got anything again. All I care about is that I have this relationship with God now that I share with other people. I'm fine with being broke. I'm fine with depending on Him. As a matter of fact, I enjoy it more than having. I want to lay aside everything else that I think is going to bring fulfillment. Why would I want to hang on to anything? You gave it all for me. That just blows my mind. That blows my mind, and I feel joy. Joy and peace that surpasses everything. That's the scriptures just coming to life in my life. That's the best I can describe it.
Got scars on my arm where I would carve myself up, using my blood or blood of an animal, the neighbor's cat, dog, whatever I could get my hands on, to work magic against whoever I wanted to hurt. My marriage was just wasn't what I wanted. Drove me down to a dark spot in my life. It ended up resenting my children because I was married to their mom. We were lifting furnaces this day. The guy up in the attic dropped his end, and I caught it, and I ruptured 2 discs. It started off as prescribed. In the end, I would take a month's worth in a night. So I've got 260 Percocet, 90 Soma, 120 Klonopin one night. And even I threw up a lot from how many I would take, but it was more comfortable than living the life I thought I was cursed with. I'm lying to my wife daily. She found a 1/4 ounce in my pocket. She said that she loved me, but she didn't know how to help. I looked at her and I said, I've never loved you and I never will. Because now she's messing with my true love, and that was the substance. Asked her to grab the kids and go because it was going to get scary. And it did. It got real scary. Shot up a lot of heroin. And I remember threatening God that I would find a way to heaven to destroy him. I just wanted him to burn for how I was feeling. That's when I got into witchcraft. I'd write their names in my blood or blood of an animal. I would burn candles, invoke prayers, and meditate hours. I would just picture what I would want to have happen to these people. When other people start seeing things, people are afraid of me. I mean, I got the nickname Devil, and I just wanted to do whatever I could to live up to that name. I would do too much coke or meth, so I'd have to overcompensate with something else to bring me back down. So I would drink more or smoke some bud. I would get too far down again, and there was never enough I could do to make me feel any better because I was dead inside.
I've caught a few guys back there in the parking lot shooting up, and Johnny was one of them. And I said, "What are you doing?" Like I tell every guy that comes with addiction, we have an adult rehabilitation center. It doesn't cost you anything but your time. And your time matters, buddy. This is your life. But he didn't want to hear me. He didn't want to hear me. I counted Johnny out already.
I just remember going to a hotel room. I overdosed. Stopped breathing, and a friend doused me with ice cold water until I snapped out of it. When my eyes opened up, I wanted to live. I was done. I knew it in my heart. I didn't know how to get out. I'm sitting in a stolen car. I have a gram of heroin on me, and I don't want to get high. I'm fighting myself. I remember praying to God, and I hadn't prayed to God in years. And within an hour, I'm in cuffs. As bad as it may have seemed to me at the time, it was actually one of the biggest blessings in my life. And then after 3 months, I got into the ARC. My eyes had been open. I accepted Jesus Christ as my Lord and Savior, and my life has not been the same since.
I was really amazed. I was glad he was in there. It taught me to never give up. Even though it looks gloomy or whatever, as long as Jesus got a hand in it, man, anything's possible.
Today, I work for a living. I actually have responsibility. I don't live in a tent. And I got 2 great kids. And I thank their mom for exactly how she raised them. I'm just grateful that I'm actually able to come back and be dad. And I do thank God every day for what I have. If you can save somebody like me, anybody can be saved. There's hope for everybody. I know it every time I look in the mirror. I'm a miracle.
For me, there was always a part of me that felt like I maybe wasn't like anybody else. So when drugs came along, it provided a solution. That's when I started doing things like shoplifting, breaking into houses and committing crime to get money. I did a lot of things against my moral judgment, against what I knew was right and wrong. Not being a seasoned thief, I wasn't very good at it, so I got caught quite a lot. I was in and out of prison approximately 15 times. I mean, my drug use was more of an issue for my children because I wasn't able to look after them the way that they needed to be looked after. So the last time I got put into prison, the kids were just taken away, and the social work department told me that I wouldn't see them again, that would be it. When I was told that my children, I would never see them again, it kind of made me sit back and think a little bit about how it must have affected them. Just given to complete strangers, it must have been terrifying for them. Awful experience for them. I was just so ready to give up because I was just feeling so bad. What I was going to do was I was going to go and I was going to use some drugs just to feel better. And the officer came and opened the door at that point, and he handed me this envelope, and in it was a letter from the kids' foster carers with a Christmas card from the kids. And it just said, "Merry Christmas, Daddy, like lots of love from Danielle," and it was just covered in kisses. And it was the first time I'd heard from the kids. I'd never heard anything from them. I'd just been told I wouldn't see them and I wasn't allowed to and I wouldn't hear from them. And I just broke down in tears at that point, and it helped me realise, or it made me realise at that point, just exactly what I was doing. You know, that I wasn't giving in. It wasn't to feel sorry for myself, that there was something bigger happening here, and to continue. And it gave me that strength just at the exact point when I needed it. When I left prison, I had nowhere to live. I had no possessions except what I carried in 2 plastic prison bags. And I went to the local authorities, and they put me in Salvation Army homeless hostel in Dundee called Strathmore Lodge. And I've got this new sort of direction and new drive to go in a different direction, but I had no real experience of living a life without drugs. I had no real experience of knowing how to live, really, at all. And in the Salvation Army, I found a really nurturing staff team that kind of sort of pushed me along, gently nudged me along. Where I no longer had that desire and drive to use drugs, there was a desire and drive for other things. So I was just looking for answers. Why is this happening? Why, what's different? But also I needed practical experience of living, and that was provided by the support I got in the Salvation Army. What I truly believe is that when you change through God, when you allowed God to work in your life, then people see that. It shines out of you, and immediately people will trust you, and it's contagious. I've realised is that if I give my life to God, then He will provide and He will guide my paths, and it's it's all worked out in a way that I'm here, and I believe it's exactly where I'm supposed to be.
My name is Kent Buckner Jr. I stay here at Salvation Army, Bell Shelter. Struggled for some years, maybe a couple decades with substance abuse. I was 5, yeah. First drink and marijuana. There was some inappropriate behavior with some female relatives in my family. In fact, it was pretty much a classic case because the marijuana was used so that I wouldn't tell what had happened. And I was so fearful of my mom that, I was told, if you tell what happened, that I'm going to tell your mom that you used marijuana. And what 5-year-old wants their mom to know something like that? What it did is, it just made me miss a large portion of innocence. I was under the delusion that I was a functional drinker. Even as an adult, that's something that I couldn't see. After college, catapulted into cocaine. And that really just took me in a whole different direction in my mid-20s that lasted here into my mid-40s, yeah. And one guy told me that if I tried crystal meth, that I could quit the crack cocaine problem. So I did it, and then that became my issue. It didn't matter what the substance was, is that I was on a downward spiral. I lowered the bar on everything that I did. And in doing that, it became lower and lower and lower and lower. And so I ended up homeless. And then I was okay with that. I had to take a look at that and say, wow, you know what? This hasn't been working. And it took for me to be in jail to realize that. The thing about jail is really, you don't know what's gonna happen next, and they move you from place to place. But I got into the dorm where, we had prayer call every single night. And then I got into Bible ministry that they had as a class there, and I had met Pastor Roy. But what I didn't realize is that it was just the starting point of what was to come. The next Sunday after being released, Pastor Roy's Like, what are you doing here? And I'm sitting in the church, and and that's just a relationship that has developed along the way. And then I became a soldier. Okay, and then from there, moved to something else. And now I have a ministry that I'm actually working in. And it took some time, it took some work, it took some therapy, not just steps, therapy, a spiritual advisor, really getting into the word, not just showing up to church. I'm not saying that it's done, but I just know that I'm not where I was. The difference now is that I'm dependent on Christ. Before, I was dependent on myself. My advice to anyone would be to read the book of John and go from there and read the 4 Gospels. Go to a treatment facility, preferably a Salvation Army. And the main thing is pray for everything. It's not going to happen immediately, and be patient with the process, but just know that it's a process and that God can do all things.